It's time to get into the apps, and today's app we're going to look at is Vinted. Hello everybody, my name is Spencer Line and this channel is all about vintage clothing, second-hand fashion talk, and anything to do with the online space that is that. Now in today's video we're going to break down the app that is Vinted. We're going to do an introduction and define some parts of it. We're going to break down some of its key features, the pros and cons of the platform itself, and my conclusion from my personal belief and experience. Okay, so what is Vinted? Vinted is an app selling platform on your mobile devices, on tablets, all that sort of stuff, that started in Lithuania in 2008. And it wasn't actually until 2014 until it came to the UK. The app was designed at a time when a web developing friend wanted to help out his other friend who wanted to get rid of some clothes before moving, and created this app. It got a lot of interest at the time and it sort of took off from there. So how does Vinted actually work? So everybody who sells on the platform is considered a wardrobe seller, which basically means you have a set amount of money that you are able to make, and essentially you are getting rid of your wardrobe. So Vinted from the get-go is not advertised directly for business use. So yeah, you have an £800 a month limit that you're able to make on this platform. And put simply, it's an app that's designed for people to make money from their home, from their bedroom, getting rid of old clothes. Or even at a very small scale or a side hustle, buying and selling in a small quantity and volume. So why do people use Vinted? One of its biggest unique selling points is that the app is one of the most affordable in terms of second-hand fashion on the market right now. Based on the time when I think the app itself got a lot more traction within the UK, I would call it more of the cost of living customers. So people who obviously want to buy clothing on a lot more of a tight budget, and cost of living customers is definitely a term that I think we can all accept is very relevant right now. So affordable fashion, a cheaper online alternative. And also in 2023, looking at more sustainable choices, secondhand is the way to go. So if you are buying secondhand, you are doing something that is good. And that's where Vinted does apply that as another bonus to it. So we've explained a bit about the app, where it started and how it works if you wanted to sell or to buy. But let's actually break down some of the features that this platform and this app offers that might be of use to you. Now, the first one that I want to talk about is the easy to use feature, and most importantly, with the way that you have a wallet on Vinted that works when you buy and sell. So Vinted allow you to basically sell items and create a wallet or a live balance that you can then buy stuff, more items on the app itself. You are obviously able to take that money out and put it into your bank account, or you can alternatively keep it there and essentially recycle your clothing with new clothes without having to spend any more money. Which is a little bit why I think that feature itself is definitely more of a cost of living customer perspective, and I think is a very useful tool that most people probably get a lot of use out of. The uploading process with Vinted is super simple and effective. All you have to do is put the photos in and the title, assuming you've added the size and the color in the title, and it will add that automatically into the next fields. Now, this is a new feature that's come around in the last couple of years, and I've seen a lot more other apps doing it, but specifically with Vinted, they have what's called a bump feature. So essentially what the bump feature does is it allows you to be seen by more people at a very small cost. It's probably relative to the price you're trying to sell the item for, but you pay £1 for 3 days or £1.55 for 7 days. Alternatively, you can actually spotlight your whole wardrobe so it can be seen on that feature, and that is £6.95 for 7 days or 99p per day. My logic with these sorts of features is that yes, they may cost you money, but if you just bump your price up, pardon the pun, bump the price up a little bit before on the listing, then when you pay to bump it or spotlight your wardrobe, you can absorb that cost a little bit into it. I always feel like if an app has a feature like that, it's probably best to actually try and use it where you can, because there will be a lot more people that will be applying that same sort of logic and process. Some of the other main features that Vinted have is a personalization page, which is on your homepage as you visit the app. You can go into your back-end settings and select whether you want to be seen by categories, brands, or products. And once you start clicking items, favoriting them, or showing interest, it basically personalizes that experience for you. Vinted kind of do some of the heavy lifting, so you don't spend so much time on the app browsing through, but just go straight to the actual products that you're hopefully looking for. And I think that feature is definitely a very modern, AI-inspired and AI-integrated feature that makes shopping on apps very simplified and almost takes out a lot of the searching process for you. I can't say as much whether spotlighting or bumping products has a correlation to being seen on the personalization, but I imagine again that comes down to it probably having some sort of integral part into that process as well. They also offer a forum section, so for people who are new to the platform, it's an easy way for you to connect with people, see if there's a feed of something that somebody else has had the same issue, maybe it's with returning, things like that. That's all within one page. And that leads me on to one of the main features that, in my opinion, is one of the biggest savers as somebody who's been in an industry working with mixed of couriers all over the time, is that on Vinted, the label is automatic. The customer, once they find an item they like, they choose the option they want, whether it's Yodel, in post, or through Every's local drop-off, and the label is sent to you by an email or a downloadable link within the little messaging thread that you have. What that essentially means is that you don't have to worry about the shipping, the customer's just bought the label and you print it off, happy days, and it's off on its way. And I think that's one of the most advanced ways of now that with using the apps that we have, that sort of like seamless courier system. And in another video, I'm probably gonna talk to you a little bit more about the importance or the lack of importance with offering free shipping in 2023, but that is also negated by that. Essentially, it's not free shipping, but you don't have to worry about that as a cost, and neither does the customer because they just bought a label. Probably one of the biggest features for the people who are selling on Vinted is that as a result of that, there are 0% to the commission. So once you sell an item on Vinted, if you sell it for £10, you will get that £10 in your wallet once it is cleared about 72 hours after the customer has received it without any complaint. So all in all, I think they're the main features with Vinted that it actually has. And now I'm gonna dive in to my personal take on the pros and cons with this platform. Now, I just wanna say for some disclaimer, I'm coming from the side of a perspective where I've been a seller within the secondhand and vintage market, and my opinion on apps may be biased in a different way to you based on the experience and my part in this ecosystem. However, I have gone with a non-biased view, and I've got the points. I'm just looking at the whiteboard. I've got my points, my pros and cons, and a bit of a conclusion about what I really think about the platform. So, without further ado, let's jump in to the pros. Pro number one, it's easy to use. It's an easy app to work, to function, to buy, to sell, however you want to do it. The whole premise of it is super easy. You can't really fault that at all. Point number two is the personalization on your feed. I just think that that's a game changer in terms of these apps, and the AI sort of integration of that just makes shopping and browsing on these websites a lot more easy, and it also gives them a much bigger leverage against going on an actual website and shopping. The offer feature, which basically is what all apps do now, from eBay to Depop to now Vinted obviously as well, is that you don't have to buy an item straight outright on the price that it's shown. The offer feature basically allows you to let the customer know how much you're willing to pay for the item, and if they're happy with that, they'll accept the offer, and then you can buy the label, and if not, they may send you a counter offer. The offer system is basically like the virtual car boot, the virtual wheeling and dealing of how you would buy secondhand, or how it's typically seen. So I think it's just a great feature, cannot be faulted. One of the biggest points, it's cheap secondhand clothing. I know from the perspective where I come in the ecosystem that all secondhand clothing is definitely not cheap, and places like Vinted do offer a very, very affordable entry point for most people that are looking for whatever type of brands. There are many on there. And probably one of the biggest points from a sustainable perspective is it's so easy for people to get into actually selling secondhand clothing. One of the biggest driving factors for what really needs to be encouraging secondhand is the fact that we are keeping clothing that doesn't need to go into landfill in circulation and keeping it going. Green economy, guys, green economy. They're my honest pros. If you've got any other ones that you think I've missed, feel free to drop a comment. But now let's get in to the cons. Con number one is from a seller perspective, and you are limited to a wardrobe. Now, £800 a month is £9,600 a year. So if you was doing it as a wardrobe or doing it as a big wardrobe side hustle sort of thing, that still allows you to make £9,600 or generate that much per year. But there is still a limit on how much you can make in comparison to other apps that do the same thing. So there is a limitation on how much you can actually earn a month. Now, this may be an unpopular opinion, but this is based on the perspective where I am in the ecosystem, but certain vintage resellers, people that have been within the online secondhand community, might say that Vinted devalues the price of secondhand or allows people to sell things at a super cheap price. An app that I would closely compare with the prices that you can find on Vinted is Facebook Marketplace. If you looked on Facebook Marketplace for clothing and looked, let's say maybe at this point I've got two like Ralph Lauren t-shirts or something like that, and I'm finding them on both platforms, you might be able to find them for about the same price. And it's sort of the similar kind of people that sell on both of those platforms, without generalization, but just based on the experience. So devaluing the secondhand is probably quite a big con that I think Vinted faces from the secondhand community of people who tried to make businesses out of it, because obviously, like I come to that first point, it is basically for wardrobe sellers, but wardrobe sellers in a big bulk and a big abundance basically create a big economy that is taken away from the vintage and secondhand community of people building businesses. However, that is a personal perspective con and not for everybody. And the last con I've got probably is a bit of an attachment to the second one, but it just causes a friction to business. Vinted is a brilliant platform in all of its entirety for what it does, but for people who are trying to make businesses or have continued making businesses through this stream of economy with the secondhand market and sustainable sort of fashion, it causes difficulties because a lot more options for people at a much more affordable price means that people have to question their price, reduce their quality of what they're selling, or just sort of be as competitive as the apps. And that is one of the reasons why I've sort of had to take a bit of a different route. But you know, again, do not get the tiny violins out for me. I'm here wanting to spread and share all the knowledge I have and let you know my personal take. They were the pros and they were the cons of Vinted. So this is now going to come with my conclusion on Vinted itself from the overall perspective and what I think are the best points for you to take from this, from somebody who is looking at this as objectively as possible. Vinted is an absolutely amazing app if you are into secondhand, just by a customer and a buyer point without so much of a sustainable encouragement on the actual economy of things. Buying from loads of individual sellers isn't exactly a greener alternative, but it does sit very much with the cost of living customers and people making a little bit on the side, and I am all for that, and especially with a sustainable encouragement on it. That is pro. And realistically, for the final point, I would say that from the vintage perspective and the people who resell, so the people like me and maybe some of them like you, it's not a great app for growth because obviously the wardrobe limitations and also the way that it is too competitive with different markets and people who try and sell clothing. However, for the situation that we're in, especially in the United Kingdom, with the cost of living crisis and the customers of that sort of capacity, and the fact that it encourages people to buy and sell things secondhand and become more sustainable, I think overall it's a good app. So I'm gonna give, I've not even thought about a rating, but I'm gonna give Vinted a 7 out of 10 overall, based on what's good about it, what's bad about it, and genuinely, objectively as possible, where I think it really sits in the market. So 7 out of 10. I've been Spencer Line, and I hope that you have found this video somewhat interesting, and hopefully my opinion and some of the perspectives I have give some insight or give some inspiration in you with whatever you do. So yes, stay sustainable, stay safe, and my peoples, I'll be back again Sundays at 7 p.m. Big love, take care.